The salt spray hit my face as I stepped onto the government research vessel, but something felt off right away. The ship looked like standard marine research on the surface, but the crew moved with military precision that didn't match the supposed scientific mission. Major Harvey stood waiting on deck, all pressed uniform and clenched jaw. His handshake lasted exactly 2 seconds before he launched into what barely qualified as a briefing. "We need an experienced deep-sea engineer to investigate anomalous readings at 25,000 feet, he said, like he was reading from a script. "Your job is equipment operation and crew safety." "What kind of anomalous readings?" I asked. His jaw tightened. "That's need to know. You'll get details when you reach depth." "Great. Nothing like diving 5 miles down without knowing what you're looking for." The rest of the crew looked just as confused as I felt. Elaine Daniel, the systems specialist, gave me a shrug when I tried to get more information. She was maybe 29, with sharp eyes behind black-framed glasses and the kind of confidence that came from knowing her way around complex electronics. "They told me to keep the submersible running and document whatever we find," she said, adjusting her tablet. "Beyond that, your guess is as good as mine." Jacqueline looked downright worried about the whole setup. She kept checking her equipment like she was preparing for something specific, but when I asked what, she just shook her head. "I've been studying deep-sea ecosystems for 6 years, she said, tucking a strand of dark hair behind her ear. "This doesn't feel like any research mission I've been on." Harvey pressed a sealed envelope into my hands. "Complete secrecy. Open this only when you reach target depth." I turned the envelope over, checking the military classification stamps. "And if I don't like what's inside?" "You signed the contracts, Mr. Herrera. You're committed to this mission." Walking the deck to check our submersible, I found equipment that had no business on a research vessel. Electronic arrays buzzed with purpose, their dishes aimed in directions that had nothing to do with marine biology. Communication jammers sat ready for use. Signal monitoring stations tracked transmissions I couldn't identify. This wasn't marine research. This was surveillance. "Anyone else getting bad vibes about this?" Jacqueline muttered as we prepped the submersible. "Going that deep without knowing what we're hunting feels like asking for trouble." Elaine nodded, running diagnostics on our life support systems. "The initial sonar data shows nothing but empty seafloor. So why all the secrecy and military hardware?" I checked our depth ratings and ballast controls, making sure everything could handle the crushing pressure we'd face. 25,000 feet meant we'd be operating at the absolute limits of our equipment's capabilities. Harvey paced the command deck above us, constantly checking his encrypted phone and looking around the horizon like he expected company. Every few minutes he'd bark questions about weather patterns, wind speed, visibility. His radio crackled with coded transmissions I couldn't understand. Military personnel shadowed our every move, watching, listening. Conversations died when uniforms appeared. Equipment got double-checked by people who weren't part of the science team. They handled our gear like they knew exactly what we might encounter down there. "This feels more like Black Ops than research," I said quietly, securing the dive gear. Elaine looked around to make sure no one was listening. "I've worked government contracts before, but never with this level of classification. They're treating this like a national security issue." "Maybe it is," Jacqueline said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What if they found something down there that they don't want the public to know about?" The ocean stretched endlessly around us, dark water hiding whatever had spooked the military enough to drag civilian contractors into their operation. I'd spent 12 years working deep-sea engineering, but I'd never felt this kind of tension before a dive. Harvey's voice cut through the salt air. "Final equipment check in 30 minutes. We launch at 8 a.m. I looked at the sealed envelope in my hands, then at my crew. Whatever waited for us 5 miles down, we were about to find out together. I ripped open the sealed envelope at exactly 25,000 feet, the paper crackling in my gloved hands while our submersible hung suspended in complete darkness. The coordinates matched what Harvey had told us, but the extra instructions made my stomach drop. Find and document any artificial structures or anomalous phenomena. Maintain visual contact at all times. Report findings immediately. That was it. No background, no heads up about what we'd run into down here. "Well?" Elaine asked, adjusting the ballast controls as we settled into position. "What's the big secret?" I passed her the orders. "We're looking for structures, man-made or otherwise." Jacqueline looked up from her sonar display, making a face. "That's weird. This area should be crawling with life at this depth, but I'm getting almost nothing on biological scanners." She was right. 25,000 feet down, we should be seeing all kinds of deep-sea creatures. Instead, her screen showed empty water in every direction. "Maybe that's why they sent us here," Elaine said, running diagnostics on our searchlights. "Something cleared out the local ecosystem." I powered up our main beams, slicing through the black water. The seafloor came into view below us, blanketed in fine sediment that hadn't been touched for decades. No buildings, no wreckage, nothing but endless sand reaching past where our lights could reach. "Surface control, this is Deep 6, I radioed. "We've reached target depth. Beginning search pattern." Harvey's voice came back through the growing static. "Copy that, Deep 6. Report any findings right away." The interference kept getting worse the longer we stayed down here. I'd worked plenty of deep-sea operations, but I'd never run into electromagnetic problems like this in open ocean. "Starting grid search now," I announced, engaging our thrusters to begin a systematic sweep of the area. For the next 3 hours, we went over every inch of seafloor within a half-mile of those coordinates. Elaine ran our sonar mapping while Jacqueline watched for any signs of life. I kept us moving in careful patterns, recording everything through our cameras. Nothing. Not a damn thing. "This doesn't make sense," Jacqueline muttered, checking her equipment for the 3rd time. "Even the most barren deep-sea environments have some microbial life. These readings show complete biological absence." Elaine tapped her compass, which had started spinning randomly about an hour ago. "And this electromagnetic interference is getting stronger. Something down here is messing with our instruments." Harvey's voice cut through the static again, more demanding this time. "Deep 6. Status report. What have you found?" "Negative contact on all targets," I replied. "Seafloor appears empty. Requesting permission to expand search area." "Negative. Maintain current coordinates. Continue searching." I caught the eyes of my crew. Harvey's story just didn't line up with what we were finding down here. "Maybe the intel was wrong," Elaine suggested quietly. "Happens all the time with government operations." But something bothered me. No sea life anywhere, the weird electronic glitches, the way Harvey kept insisting we stay right here in this spot. Like he knew something was down there, even if we couldn't find it. "Air supply at 60%, Jacqueline reported. "We should start thinking about heading up soon." I checked our life support systems. She was right. We'd already pushed our search longer than standard safety protocols recommended. But Harvey's radio calls were coming every 15 minutes now, his voice getting more urgent each time. "Deep 6, this is surface control. Expand your search pattern. Check coordinates ±1 nautical mile." Finally, permission to look beyond the original target area. "Copy that. Surface control. Expanding search area now." I adjusted our heading, taking us beyond the coordinates for the first time. Maybe whatever they expected us to find had drifted, or maybe their intel was off by a few hundred yards. The pressure readings climbed as we moved into slightly deeper water. I had to keep tweaking our ballast to stay neutral at these bone-crushing depths. One mistake down here and the ocean would crumple our hull like a soda can. "Still nothing on biological scanners," Jacqueline said. "This whole area is like a dead zone." Elaine's instruments started acting up worse as we moved further from the original coordinates. Her compass spun wildly now, and several electronic systems showed interference patterns she couldn't explain. "Whatever's causing this electromagnetic stuff, we're getting closer to it," she said, trying to compensate for the equipment problems. I pushed us another quarter-mile past the target zone, our searchlights sweeping back and forth across empty seafloor. The sand looked the same everywhere, fine, undisturbed, lifeless. "Air supply at 50%, Jacqueline announced. "We're hitting our safety margin." I knew she was right. The rules said we should head up once we hit half our air, but Harvey's voice kept getting more desperate over the radio, making it clear this job mattered more than following protocol. "Surface control, we're approaching safety limits on air supply. Request guidance on continuing search." Static filled our communications for almost a minute before Harvey's voice came back, strained and urgent. "Deep 6, maintain search pattern. This is critical. Whatever's down there, you need to find it." I looked at my crew, seeing my own doubt mirrored in their expressions. We could stretch our oxygen a bit longer, but we'd be risking everything on intel that could be total garbage. The electromagnetic interference suddenly jumped, making half our equipment flash and reboot. In that moment of electronic mayhem, I had to make a choice that would decide whether we lived to see daylight again. The electromagnetic interference spiked again, and in that moment of chaos with our instruments flickering, Jacqueline's sonar screen lit up like Christmas morning. "Holy shit," she breathed, staring at her display. "Avery, you need to see this." I moved closer to her station, keeping one eye on our depth controls. The sonar return she was pointing at looked unreal, a huge signature moving at the very edge of our scanning range. "That can't be right," I said, checking the scale. "Your equipment's malfunctioning." "That's what I thought too." Jacqueline ran the scan again, her fingers flying over the controls. "But I'm getting the same reading. Something organic, nearly a mile in length." Elaine looked up from her instrument panel, making a face. "A mile? That's bigger than any whale species on record." "It's bigger than most naval vessels," I muttered, studying the sonar image. The thing wasn't just large, it was moving with clear purpose, following a straight trajectory rather than the random patterns you'd expect from sea life. "Surface control, this is Deep 6, I radioed. "We've got a massive biological contact on sonar, requesting guidance." Harvey's response came back quicker than usual, his voice strained. "Deep 6, describe the contact." "Organic signature, approximately 1 mile in length, moving with apparent intelligence. Should we investigate?" Static filled our comms for almost 30 seconds before Harvey came back. "Keep eyes on it, but stay back. Document everything." I looked around at my crew. Harvey's tone suggested this wasn't the surprise it should have been. "Change course to intercept," I decided, adjusting our heading. "But we stay well back from whatever that thing is." As we got closer, Jacqueline's biological scanners began collecting more detailed information. She shook her head in disbelief as data flowed across her screens. "The cellular structure readings don't match anything in my databases," she said. "This isn't just a new species. The basic biology is completely alien." The thing's movement pushed massive amounts of water that hit us even from where we were, making our sub rock back and forth like a toy boat. I kept having to adjust our position to stay steady while following where it went. "It's definitely heading somewhere specific," I observed, watching the sonar track. "This isn't random migration." Elaine's instruments went haywire as we approached. "I'm getting electromagnetic readings from the creature, just like before, but way more intense." "You're saying this thing generates its own electromagnetic field?" Jacqueline asked. "That's exactly what I'm saying, and it's interfering with half our systems." I kept us back what I hoped was far enough while the thing continued moving with clear purpose across the ocean floor. Through our sonar mapping, we could make out arms and body parts that went against everything I knew about ocean life. "This is incredible," Jacqueline whispered, her scientific excitement overriding her caution. "We're looking at a completely unknown form of life. The implications for evolutionary biology alone. The implications for our survival are what worry me," I cut her off. "Something that size could crush us without even noticing." But I had to admit, watching the creature move was mesmerizing. Its massive body moved through the water with surprising grace, each motion smooth and purposeful. Whatever this thing was, it knew exactly where it was going. "Surface control were maintaining contact with the biological anomaly," I reported. "It appears to be following a specific course. Copy that, Deep Six. Continue tracking and document all findings." Harvey's voice had a sharp edge I'd never heard before, like he was expecting something specific to happen. The creature's electromagnetic field got stronger as we followed, making more of our instruments flash and restart. Elaine worked frantically to adjust the settings, but some systems were totally fried by the interference. "Air supply at 40%, Jacqueline announced, though her attention remained glued to her biological scanners. "But Avery, we can't leave now. This could be the discovery of the century." I checked our life support readings. We were pushing our safety margins, but the creature's behavior suggested we might be getting close to something important. Its movement pattern had stayed the same for the past 20 minutes, like it was heading straight for a particular spot. "Whatever it's heading for, we should reach it soon," I said, studying our navigation display. "The question is whether we want to be there when it arrives." The huge shape ahead of us kept moving through the crushing depths, and I knew we weren't just watching anymore. We'd become witnesses to something that would completely change what humans understood about life in Earth's deepest waters. The creature's electromagnetic signal grew stronger, and somewhere in the darkness ahead, something was waiting for it to arrive. The creature slowed as we got closer to what seemed like bare ocean floor, but Jacqueline's sonar showed something else entirely. "That's not possible," she whispered, staring at her display. "I'm reading a perfect geometric structure. Circular, massive." I adjusted our searchlights and nearly choked on my own breath. Rising from the ocean floor like some massive monument sat a dome 800 feet across, its metallic surface reflecting our lights in ways that hurt to look at. "Surface control. This is Deep Six," I radioed, my voice barely steady. "We have visual contact with an artificial structure. Repeat, artificial structure on the seafloor." Harvey's voice crackled back right away. "Deep Six, tell me what you're looking at." "Metallic dome, approximately 800 feet in diameter. Definitely not natural formation." Static filled our comms before Harvey came back, his voice tight with something between excitement and fear. "Keep watching. Document everything." Elaine ran her scanners over the dome's surface, shaking her head at the readings. "These metal compounds don't exist in any database I have. The molecular structure is completely unknown. The massive creature we'd been following positioned itself directly above the dome's center, and what happened next made my engineering brain shut down completely. Sections of the creature's flesh began peeling back like opening flowers, revealing organs underneath that pulsed with brilliant glowing light. "Jesus Christ," I breathed, watching through our cameras as the creature pressed these exposed organs against the dome's surface. The organs looked like eyes, massive alien eyes that looked around the dome with patterns of light so complex they made my head spin just watching them. The creature was talking with the structure, using its own biology as some kind of interface system. "Are you getting this?" I asked Elaine, who was frantically adjusting our recording equipment. "Every second of it. The electromagnetic signatures are off the charts." Jacqueline leaned forward, her scientific training battling obvious terror. The creature's using bioluminescent communication, but the complexity of those patterns suggests intelligence far beyond anything we've ever documented. The light show continued for several minutes, the creature's organs creating sequences that looked almost like computer code written in living light. Whatever conversation was happening between creature and dome, it was way beyond human understanding. "Surface control. The biological entity is interfacing directly with the structure," I reported. "Some kind of communication protocol using bioluminescent organs." Harvey's voice came back strained. "Copy that, Deep Six. Continue documentation." Then the dome responded. A section of its surface began moving, pulling back like mechanical pedals to reveal a dark opening easily large enough for our submersible. The creature immediately pulled back its scanning organs, sealing the exposed flesh back under protective layers, and began swimming away from the dome. "The structure is opening," I radioed, staring at the dark entrance. "Repeat. The dome has opened what appears to be an access port." "Deep Six, investigate the opening, enter the structure and report findings." I almost dropped the radio. "Surface control, that's a bad idea. We don't know what's in there." "Deep Six, you are ordered to investigate. This is a direct command." I looked at my crew, seeing my own worry mirrored in their expressions. Elaine checked our air supply while Jacqueline kept watch for any changes in the dome's behavior. "Air at 35%, Elaine reported quietly. "If we go in there, we're committed. No time for extended exploration." The dark opening waited below us like a gaping mouth, revealing nothing beyond the reach of our searchlights. Whatever lay inside that alien structure, Harvey was ordering us to find it. "Surface control, entering the structure now," I said, engaging our thrusters toward the opening. As we dropped toward the dome's entrance, I realized we were about to become the first humans to enter technology that had been sitting on the ocean floor for who knows how long. The creature had unlocked it for us, but I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap designed by intelligence far beyond human understanding. The black opening swallowed our submersible, and our lights vanished into something that wasn't quite darkness, something else entirely. I followed Harvey's orders, even though every instinct told me to turn around. The submersible slipped through the dome's opening like we were being eaten alive. "This is insane," I muttered, watching the entrance seal shut behind us with mechanical precision that made my skin crawl. The tunnel we entered went against everything I knew about underwater construction. Smooth metallic walls stretched ahead of us. But here's the thing that really messed with my head. The passage was changing its width as we moved forward, broader when we needed to turn, tighter in straight sections, like the structure was actively making room for our submersible. "Avery, you need to see these readings," Elaine said, her voice tight with disbelief. "My exterior sensors are detecting atmosphere in here, actual breathable atmosphere." "That's impossible," I replied, but checked our hull integrity anyway. No leaks, no pressure changes. Whatever was keeping the water out, it wasn't following normal physics. Jacqueline leaned over her biological scanners, making a face. "I'm not picking up any organic threats, but the atmospheric composition is weird. Oxygen, nitrogen, but there are elements I can't identify." Emergency lighting blinked on along the tunnel walls as we passed, strips of soft blue light that activated just ahead of our position. The structure knew we were here and was responding to our presence in real time. Surface control. This is Deep 6. I tried radioing, but got nothing back except static. Comms are dead. We're on our own down here. The tunnel curved ahead, splitting into 3 different passages. Our navigation systems had died completely the moment we entered the dome, so I had to pick our route based on instinct and the weak air currents I could feel through our sensors. Left passage looks wider, Elaine observed, studying her remaining functional instruments. The middle one has stronger airflow, Jacqueline added. I chose the middle passage, following the air current deeper into the structure. The walls here showed scattered markings, symbols that looked almost like writing but didn't match anything in human language databases, mathematical sequences that followed patterns I couldn't figure out. These symbols, Jacqueline whispered, recording everything through our cameras. They're definitely intentional communication, but the logic behind them is completely alien. We made our way through 2 more branching passages before the tunnel opened into something that left me gasping. A huge central chamber stretched beyond our flashlight's reach, with a domed ceiling that vanished into blackness above us. Jesus, Elaine breathed, running every scanner we had left. This chamber is massive. I'm reading at least 500 feet across, maybe more. At the center of the space stood a tower, maybe 100 feet tall, clearly the dome's main facility. It looked almost organic in design, like it had grown rather than been constructed, but the materials were definitely man-made. Atmospheric readings are stable, Elaine reported, checking her instruments twice. The air composition is actually breathable, though I'm recommending we keep our environmental suits sealed until we know more. I guided us closer to the tower, picking up details that got my engineering mind racing. The entrance was built for 2-legged creatures, doorways and passages made for beings that walked upright and stood about as tall as humans. This wasn't built by the creature we followed here, I said, studying the tower's proportions. Whatever designed this structure, they're built like us. Jacqueline's voice carried excitement mixed with fear. We're looking at buildings made by creatures that looked like us. This changes everything. I moved our sub close to the tower's base, near enough to study the entrance, but with room to run if we needed to. The doorway stayed shut, with no clear way to get inside. So what now? Elaine asked, monitoring our life support systems. We can't exactly knock. The tower stood in the artificial atmosphere, its strange design showing that whatever built it understood how to make things our size. The builders knew about creatures like us, and that realization felt more threatening than reassuring. Our lights swept across the tower's surface, showing details that would change everything we thought we knew about life in Earth's oceans. I stepped out of the submersible into the dome's fake atmosphere, my environmental suit feeling awkward and pointless in the breathable air. The tower waited ahead, its flowing curves looking even stranger up close. Avery, are you sure about this? Elaine's voice crackled through my comm system. We can't exactly come rescue you if something goes wrong in there. I'll be fine, I said, though my voice didn't sound convincing even to me. Keep the engines warm and monitor my suit telemetry. The tower's entrance stayed sealed as I walked closer, just smooth metal without any buttons or handles I could see. But when I got within 10 feet, part of the wall just dissolved away, showing a gently lit inside that seemed almost inviting. The door just opened, I reported, peering inside. Looks safe enough. Define safe, Jacqueline muttered over the comm. The hallway beyond stretched deeper into the tower, its walls covered with displays that flickered with data streams and symbols I couldn't begin to understand. The weird part was how the symbols kept changing as I walked past them. like the displays were reacting to my presence. My suit's gravity sensors showed normal Earth gravity inside the tower, which made no sense for an underwater structure. I should be floating or at least feeling the effects of water pressure. But instead, I walked normally down the corridor like I was strolling through an office building. "Gravity's normal in here," I told my crew. "Whatever's generating it, the technology is way beyond anything we have." The hallway opened into a spiral ramp that wound up through the tower's center. As I climbed, the displays along the walls began showing more recognizable images, star charts that looked almost familiar, planetary systems with orbital patterns I could actually understand. "The displays are changing," I reported, "starting to show astronomical data. Star maps, maybe." My environmental sensors weren't picking up any dangerous materials, though the air composition included elements that didn't exist in Earth's atmosphere. Whatever I was breathing, it was keeping me alive without poisoning me. The ramp took me up 3 levels before opening into a large circular room that made me stop dead in my tracks. Multiple screens covered every wall, arranged in perfect geometric patterns around a central platform. On that platform sat a sphere about the size of a basketball, glowing with soft internal light that pulsed in a steady rhythm. "I'm in some kind of control room," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Screens everywhere, and a central device that looks important." As soon as I stepped into the room, every screen lit up at once. The sudden flash of light and movement made me stumble backward, but what showed up on those displays made my stomach drop. The biggest screen displayed our government research vessel floating on the surface, filmed from an angle that shouldn't have been possible, showing every detail of the deck. I could see Major Harvey walking back and forth near the communications array, military personnel checking equipment, even the specific model numbers on our backup generators. "That's not possible," I breathed, staring at real-time footage of our ship from 5 miles underwater. Other screens showed the massive creature we'd run into, but now I could see it wasn't alone. Dozens of similar beings swam through different ocean spots around the world, their huge bodies moving with clear intent through deep-sea trenches I knew from my engineering work. But the displays that really made my hands tremble showed detailed images of me, Elaine, and Jacqueline. Not just live footage, but recordings from our whole trip down. Every conversation we'd had, every instrument reading we'd taken, every moment of panic or bewilderment, all of it captured in crystal clear detail. "Jesus Christ," I whispered, watching myself on screen as I'd first spotted the dome hours earlier. "Avery, what's happening?" Elaine's voice cut through my shock. "Your vitals just spiked." I couldn't answer. The screens kept cycling through images that showed how completely we'd been watched. Our submersible's approach, our radio communications with Harvey, even close-up shots of our faces as we'd reacted to discovering the dome. We hadn't found this place by accident. We'd been guided here, observed every step of the way, and now I was standing in what could only be a control room that had been monitoring our mission from the very beginning. The central sphere pulsed brighter, and I knew whatever intelligence operated this facility was waiting for me to make the next move. I stared at the screens showing every detail of our mission, my hands trembling as I watched myself discover the dome hours earlier. The surveillance footage was perfect. Crystal clear images of conversations I'd thought were private. Close-ups of our faces as we'd reacted to finding this place. But that was just the beginning. The central monitors changed, displaying something that made my engineering brain completely shut down. Ocean maps of Earth appeared on screen after screen, but these weren't like any charts I'd ever seen. Hundreds of red dots marked locations across every major ocean basin: Pacific, Atlantic, Indian, Arctic. Each dot pulsed with the same rhythm as the sphere behind me. "No way," I whispered, counting the markers. There had to be at least 300 locations, maybe more. The maps zoomed in on individual sites, revealing dome structures identical to the one I was standing inside. Some sat in deep ocean trenches, others on continental shelves, a few positioned near major shipping lanes. The network covered the entire planet like a surveillance grid that had been operating right under our noses. My radio crackled with Elaine's voice. "Avery, your suit readings are all over the place. What's going on in there?" I couldn't answer. The screens were cycling through new displays that made my stomach drop. Detailed anatomical diagrams of human beings filled every monitor. Not medical textbook illustrations, but precise scans showing bone density, muscle fiber composition, neural pathway mapping. Brain activity patterns scrolled past in real time, electrical impulses tracked and recorded with technology that made our best medical equipment look like stone tools. The genetic information was worse. DNA sequences I recognized from basic biology, but analyzed with a level of detail that showed complete understanding of human biological systems. Height differences, racial traits, aging patterns, everything cataloged and studied like we were specimens in a lab. "They know everything about us," I said to myself, watching blood flow patterns and hormonal fluctuations displayed with scientific precision. The central sphere glowed brighter as I got closer, its surface alive with swirling patterns that looked like neural activity. The light pulsed in waves that reminded me of brain scans, as if something was thinking inside that thing. The screens reacted to my approach, switching displays before I even knew where to look next. Whatever intelligence ran this place was reading my intentions, predicting my movements with an accuracy that felt invasive and wrong. I reached toward the sphere, pulled by a need to understand what was controlling all this surveillance. The surface appeared liquid but solid, patterns of light flowing underneath like thoughts made visible. The moment my gloved hand got within inches of the sphere, every screen in the room exploded with new images that knocked the wind out of me. Alien landscapes filled the displays, cities that stretched beyond the horizon with architecture that defied physics. Structures twisted through dimensions I couldn't understand, built from materials that seemed to shift between solid and energy. The scale was mind-boggling. Buildings that could house millions of beings, transportation systems that moved through space itself. But the creatures living in these worlds made me forget how to breathe. Beings the size of mountains moved across alien terrain with flowing motion, their shapes changing between sharp angles and smooth bends. They talked through flashes of light that filled whole skies with meaning, their minds so huge that watching them think was like staring into the sun. One screen showed how the ocean domes got built, and I watched in horror as the massive creatures we'd met served as living cargo ships. They weren't just animals. They were biological vessels carrying dome parts across space. Their bodies changed to survive in the empty void and the crushing depths of alien seas. "Jesus Christ," I breathed, watching these beings deploy monitoring stations on world after world. The final images showed Earth from space, but nothing like the blue marble I'd seen in photos. Our planet sat surrounded by a network of massive creatures, stationed at key points around our solar system like guards. Smaller ships moved between them in patterns that screamed constant communication and coordination. Earth wasn't just being watched. It was completely encircled by an intelligence that had been studying us for God knows how long. Every ocean, every continent, every major city was under surveillance by technology we couldn't even see. The dome I stood in wasn't some isolated find. It was one piece in a planetary spy network that had been recording human civilization with the cold interest of scientists studying germs in a lab dish. The sphere pulsed again, and I realized the intelligence behind these screens was waiting for me to grasp the complete picture of what lay before me. We hadn't stumbled onto alien technology by accident. We'd been invited to learn the truth about humanity's place in a universe where we were nothing more than lab rats. The sphere's surface felt warm through my gloves, almost alive, and the moment I made contact, everything changed. The device didn't just respond, it pulled back into the floor like it was retreating from me, sinking through solid metal until only a faint outline remained. Every screen in the room exploded with light so bright I had to cover my eyes, but I couldn't look away from what appeared next. Space. Not the empty black void I'd read about in textbooks, but space filled with movement on a scale that made my brain hurt. Creatures moved through the darkness between stars, their forms so massive that planets looked like marbles next to them. These weren't ships or vehicles. They were living beings, swimming through the vacuum like it was ocean water. "What the hell?" I whispered, watching one of these things approach a solar system I didn't recognize. The creature was easily the size of Earth's moon, its body changing between geometric patterns and flowing organic curves. Massive limbs that could wrap around entire continents reached out to touch planets with careful precision, like a scientist handling test tubes. The screens cycled through more systems, more worlds, and I realized I was watching a process that had been repeated thousands of times. Each planet showed signs of advanced civilization, cities, technology, space travel. But these enormous beings treated such achievements like a child's toys, examining them with cold interest before moving on to whatever came next. I watched worlds being cataloged, every species, every technology, every cultural development recorded with scientific detail that made our most advanced research look primitive. The beings didn't destroy these civilizations. They studied them completely, understanding every aspect of their development before making their final choice. Then came the harvest. The screens displayed the process with cold precision. Whole civilizations were pulled from their planets, their biological and technological data drained and archived in massive living storage systems. The beings consumed everything: DNA patterns, cultural wisdom, scientific breakthroughs, abandoning nothing but barren worlds emptied of all existence. "No, no, no," I said, backing away from the displays. But they followed my movement, new screens lighting up to show me more. Earth showed up on the monitors, but nothing like I'd ever seen before. Our planet sat surrounded by the massive beings, spread out at key spots across our solar system. They'd been watching us for decades, maybe centuries, documenting our progress with the same cold interest I'd seen them use on those other worlds. The timeline data hit me like a punch to the gut. Looking at their movement patterns and where they'd positioned themselves, these things were getting ready for Earth's harvest. Not sometime way off in the future. Within the next 20 to 30 years, our planet would get the same treatment as every other world I'd watched them devour. The thing we'd run into in the ocean wasn't even a scout. It was just maintenance crew. A tiny worker compared to whatever intelligence was running this whole cosmic operation. The real powers calling the shots were so enormous that our entire solar system was just another research location in their endless collection of civilizations. More images flooded the screens, showing what happened after previous harvests. Dead worlds floating in space, their surfaces stripped clean of every trace of life. Planets that had once supported billions of beings, now nothing but empty rocks drifting through the void. I tried to wrap my head around what I was seeing, but my brain kept rejecting the information. These beings operated on a level that made human intelligence look like bacteria. They harvested entire civilizations the way we might collect samples from a tide pool, with no more emotional investment than a scientist studying microorganisms. The worst part was realizing this wasn't random destruction. It was research. Methodical, thorough, scientific research that required the complete consumption of every civilization they encountered. We weren't victims of some cosmic war. We were specimens in an experiment so huge that our entire species was just one data point among thousands. The screens showed Earth's future with brutal clarity. Our cities empty, our oceans drained, our planet reduced to a lifeless husk floating in space while the massive beings moved on to their next research site. Everything humanity had ever built, every person who had ever lived, every dream and achievement and moment of love, all of it would be cataloged and stored before being discarded like used laboratory equipment. I stumbled backward, my legs hitting the wall as the full reality of humanity's situation crashed down on me. We weren't just being watched, we were being prepared for consumption by intelligence so advanced that our entire civilization was nothing more than a temporary research project. The screens went dark one by one, leaving me alone in the chamber with knowledge that felt like poison in my brain. I understood now why the dome had opened for us, why the creature had led us here, why I'd been allowed to see all this. They wanted me to know. They needed at least one human to grasp exactly how insignificant and fleeting we really were in the universe. Not from malice, but with the same detached curiosity a scientist might have watching lab rats discover their fate. I bolted from that room, my sanity cracking under the burden of what I'd discovered, knowing I could never tell anyone because there was absolutely nothing humanity could do to stop what was headed our way. I stumbled out of that tower like my brain was on fire, the cosmic terror of what I'd seen burning through every rational thought I'd ever had. My legs barely worked as I ran across the chamber floor toward our submersible, where Elaine and Jacqueline waited in the artificial atmosphere that suddenly felt like a trap closing around us. "Avery," Elaine's voice crackled through my comm. "Your vitals went completely insane. What happened in there?" I couldn't answer. How do you explain that humanity is nothing more than lab rats waiting for dissection? That our entire civilization is a temporary research project for beings so advanced they harvest planets like we collect water samples? "We're leaving," I said, my voice coming out as a croak. "Right now. Get the engines running." "What did you find?" Jacqueline pressed. "The readings we're getting from that tower are off the charts. This could be the discovery of the century." "Get us out of here," I shouted, probably loud enough to damage their eardrums through the comm system. Something in my voice must have convinced them because Elaine fired up the thrusters without another question. I climbed back into the submersible, my hands shaking so badly I could barely work the hatch controls. "Avery, you're scaring us," Jacqueline said as I strapped myself in. "What's wrong?" I looked at their faces. Elaine's worried expression behind her glasses, Jacqueline's wide eyes full of scientific curiosity, and realized I could never tell them what I'd learned. The knowledge would destroy them the same way it was destroying me. "Just get us back to the tunnel," I managed. Elaine led us away from the tower, and I noticed something that made my gut twist. The chamber's lights were changing, creating a clear path toward the exit tunnel. Bright strips showed up along the walls, pointing us toward the way out, like those lights on airplane runways. They were helping us leave. Whatever ran this place wanted us gone now that I'd seen their cosmic research project. We weren't escaping. We were being sent away. The tunnel system led us back through the branching passages with the same helpful lighting, making turns that had mixed us up on the way and totally obvious now. The walls opened up to speed our passage, and the emergency lighting stayed just bright enough to show us the fastest route to the exit. "The structure's actively helping us navigate," Elaine observed, checking her instruments. "It's like it wants us to leave quickly." "Good," I said, though nothing about this felt good. We reached the main tunnel that led back to the dome's entrance, and I could see the opening ahead, still open wide to let us pass. But as we got closer to the exit, Jacqueline's sonar picked up something that made her gasp. "The creature's gone," she said, staring at her displays. That massive biological signature just vanished. There's nothing out there. I wasn't surprised. Whatever that thing was, it had finished its job by bringing us here. Now it was probably swimming back to wherever these space researchers kept their living tools when they weren't in use. We passed through the dome's opening, back into the heavy darkness of the deep ocean, and I felt our hull adjust to the water pressure. The artificial atmosphere was behind us, but what I'd learned would follow me for the rest of my life. "Surface," I ordered. "Fast as safely possible." Elaine started our climb while Jacqueline watched the dome through our rear cameras. What she saw made her curse in Spanish. "It's closing," she reported. "The opening just sealed completely." I turned to look at her display and watched the dome's surface return to its original smooth metallic appearance. But that wasn't the worst part. The entire structure was moving, gliding across the ocean floor like it was weightless instead of thousands of tons. "Where's it going?" Elaine asked, adjusting our ascent rate to keep the dome in visual range. "Somewhere we'll never find it again," I said, watching humanity's first contact with cosmic intelligence disappear into the darkness. The dome picked up speed as it moved away from us, its massive bulk cutting through the water with surprising grace. Within minutes it had vanished beyond our sonar range, leaving nothing but empty seafloor where it had waited for who knows how long. My radio crackled with Harvey's voice, more urgent than I'd ever heard him. "Deep 6, report your status immediately. We're showing massive electromagnetic disturbances at your location." "We're ascending," I replied. "Mission complete." "What did you find down there? We need a full report on any structures or anomalies." I looked at Elaine and Jacqueline, both staring at me with questions I couldn't answer. "We'll brief you on the surface, Major." The next 20 minutes going up felt like hours. Harvey's radio calls came every few minutes, each one more demanding than the last. He wanted details about the dome, the creature, what we'd discovered inside the building. I gave him basic acknowledgments while my mind raced through what I'd learned. Humanity had maybe 20 or 30 years before the harvest began. These cosmic researchers had been studying us for decades, recording our development with the same clinical interest we might show toward bacteria in a petri dish. And there was nothing we could do to stop what was coming. When we finally broke the surface, I saw the research vessel waiting exactly where we'd left it. But something was off. More people moved around the deck, and I spotted gear that definitely hadn't been there when we'd gone down. "They were expecting this," Elaine said, watching the activity through our cameras. Military divers were already in the water, hooking lines to our sub before we'd even reached the surface. The recovery moved with rehearsed efficiency that told me they'd been ready for this exact situation. Harvey's voice crackled through our radio with perfect clarity now that we were topside. "Deep 6, you're ordered to stay off comms until debriefing. Don't talk about what you found with anyone." The crane hoisted us onto the deck, and I spotted personnel in hazmat suits waiting to walk us to what looked like a mobile quarantine unit. This wasn't normal protocol for a research mission. This was damage control. They split us up right away. Different rooms, different questioners, different ways of trying to get information about what we'd seen 5 miles down. My sessions went on for hours, with military intelligence officers asking detailed questions about how the dome was built, how the creature acted, what I'd discovered inside that tower. I told them about the structure, the artificial atmosphere, the surveillance gear. I described the screens showing global ocean monitoring and the evidence of advanced technology. But I kept the cosmic horror to myself. The harvest timeline, the scale of the intelligence studying us, the images of dead worlds floating in space. What would be the point? Telling them would only create panic without offering solutions. Humanity couldn't fight beings that collected entire civilizations. We couldn't hide from surveillance technology that had been watching us for decades. We couldn't escape a fate that had been planned before our species even developed agriculture. Harvey's reactions during the debriefing told me the military had suspected alien involvement, but needed proof. The way he asked questions suggested they'd been tracking strange activity for years, waiting for confirmation of what they already feared. The dome's location? He asked for the third time. Gone, I repeated. It moved away from the site and disappeared from our sonar. Direction? Unknown. It was beyond our tracking range within minutes. He scribbled notes on a tablet, his jaw clenched tight. They'd finally found proof of extraterrestrial intelligence, and it had vanished before they could examine it properly. The next day, they shoved contracts at us that looked more like legal threats than NDAs. Sign these or face federal prosecution for spilling classified secrets. The mission would go on record as a botched training run that turned up nothing but rock formations. I signed without reading a word. What other option did I have? Even if I wanted to warn everyone about what was headed our way, who'd believe me? And what could people do with that kind of information anyway? Elaine and Jacqueline signed too, though I could see the scientific frustration in their eyes. They'd witnessed the discovery of the century, and now they had to pretend it never happened. The military took every piece of equipment we'd used, every recording we'd made, every scrap of data from our dive. Our cameras, sonar logs, atmospheric readings, all of it vanished into classified storage where it would probably never see daylight again. They let us go with new identities in the government database, clean records that showed we'd never been involved in any deep-sea anomaly investigation. As far as official documentation was concerned, we'd spent those days conducting routine equipment tests in shallow water. But I knew the truth. I'd seen humanity's future displayed on alien screens with cold, scientific detail. We were research subjects in a cosmic experiment, and our time was running out faster than anyone could imagine. The knowledge felt like poison in my blood as I walked away from that briefing, knowing I'd carry this secret until the day the harvest began. I still wake up at 3 a.m. most nights, staring at the ceiling and doing the math again. 27 years since the mission, maybe 30 if I'm being optimistic. The numbers never change no matter how many times I run them. My apartment overlooks San Diego Bay, and I spend those sleepless hours watching cargo ships move across the dark water. The crews think they're transporting goods between continents, building global commerce, advancing human civilization. They have no idea they're just moving pieces around a board game that's already over. Work helps sometimes. Today, I'm reviewing structural plans for a new deep-sea mining platform, checking stress calculations and pressure ratings like any of it matters. My engineering brain still works perfectly. 12 years of experience doesn't just disappear because you've seen the cosmic truth. But every blueprint feels like drawing sand castles before high tide. Herrera. You got a minute? I look up to find Marcus Chen standing in my cubicle doorway with a tablet in his hands. He's maybe 28, eager, still believes technology can solve any problem. 3 years ago, that was me. What's up? I save my work and lean back in my chair. We're getting some weird sonar readings from the Monterey Canyon project. Equipment's working fine, but the data doesn't make sense. He hands me the tablet. Thought you might have seen something like this before. The sonar image shows the canyon floor at 18,000 feet, and my blood turns to ice water. There's nothing visible on the scan, just empty sediment like you'd expect. But the electromagnetic signature readings in the corner of the display are identical to what we read 3 years ago. When was this taken? I ask, keeping my voice steady. Yesterday morning. The mining survey team is baffled. They're picking up massive EM disturbances, but can't locate the source. I study the data and spot the pattern right away. Something's down there, probably another dome facility, but it's keeping itself hidden from regular detection. The cosmic researchers are still working, still watching, still getting ready for what's coming. Probably just equipment interference, I tell Marcus, handing back the tablet. Deep sea electronics get weird sometimes. I'd recommend recalibrating the sensors. He nods and walks away. Bought my story completely. But I know what's really going on. They're still out there, keeping tabs on us, making notes about how we're changing, waiting for the right moment to collect what they came for. My phone buzzes with a text from Elaine. Coffee later. Need to talk. We get together every few months, always picking new spots, never saying anything important through texts or calls. The feds probably stopped watching us years ago, but once you're hiding secrets from beyond the stars, you can't shake the feeling that someone's always listening. I find her at a small cafe in Hillcrest, sitting in the back corner with her laptop open. She looks older than 32, worry lines around her eyes that weren't there before the mission. Her technical work keeps her busy, but I can see the same tiredness I feel every morning. "How are you holding up?" she asks as I sit down. "Same as always." "You?" "Had another nightmare about those screens, the ones showing all the dead planets." She closes her laptop and wraps her hands around her coffee cup. "I've been thinking about Jacqueline." "What about her?" "She called me last week. Didn't say much, but she sounded different. Scared, maybe, more than usual. Jacqueline took the revelation harder than either of us. Her whole career was built on studying marine life, and learning that Earth's oceans were under alien surveillance shattered something fundamental in her worldview. She moved to Florida after the mission, supposedly for better research opportunities. But I think she just needed distance from everything that reminded her of what we'd seen." "Different how?" "She mentioned seeing unusual migration patterns in the Gulf, large-scale movements that don't match any known species' behavior." Elaine leans forward, lowering her voice. "What if they're preparing for the next phase? The possibility has been gnawing at me for months. Those massive creatures we ran into weren't just watching us. They were part of something bigger. If they're switching up how they operate, it might mean things are moving faster than we thought. We can't know for sure," I say, though my stomach is already clenching with familiar dread. "Can't we? You saw those images, Avery. You know what's coming better than anyone." She's right. And we both know it. The cosmic harvest isn't some distant theoretical threat. It's a scheduled event that's been planned for longer than human civilization has existed. And based on what I witnessed in that tower, the preparation phase has already started. Even if the timeline is moving up, what are we supposed to do about it? I ask. Warn everyone? Create global panic? Start a war against beings that harvest entire solar systems? Elaine stares into her coffee, and I can see her wrestling with the same hopelessness that's been eating away at me for 3 years. We're the only people on Earth who know what's really heading our way, and there's not a damn thing we can do to stop it. "Sometimes I think about telling people anyway," she says quietly. "Just so they'd know. So they could make different choices about how to spend whatever time we have left. And sometimes I think about putting a gun in my mouth rather than waiting around to be harvested like livestock." The words come out harsher than I meant them to, but Elaine doesn't flinch. She's probably had the same thoughts. "But we don't," she says. "Because maybe there's still something we can do. Some way to fight back or escape or at least understand what's happening to us." "With what?" "Our most advanced technology is like stone tools compared to what we saw down there." "I know, but giving up feels like betraying everyone who doesn't know what's coming." We sit quietly for a while, two people carrying the weight of humanity's future while surrounded by normal life going on around us. Other customers order coffee and chat about weekend plans and grumble about traffic, completely unaware that their species has maybe 2 decades left before cosmic forces beyond their understanding erase them from existence. My phone buzzes with a work email about the Monterey Canyon project. More sonar irregularities, more electromagnetic interference that the survey team can't explain. The alien monitoring network is still active, still collecting data, still preparing for the final phase of their research project. I should get back to work, I tell Elaine, though the thought of reviewing more meaningless engineering reports makes me want to scream. Yeah, me too. She opens her laptop again, but I can see she's not really focusing on the screen. Same time next month? Sure. I walk back to my office through downtown San Diego, watching people go about their daily routines with the desperate intensity of someone who knows it's all temporary. Every conversation, every relationship, every human achievement, all of it will be cataloged and stored before being tossed aside like used lab equipment. The knowledge sits in my chest, growing heavier every day. 3 years of carrying this secret, and I'm not sure how much longer I can function with cosmic terror eating away at my sanity. But I keep going anyway, because what else is there to do? The harvest is coming whether I'm ready or not, and until it arrives, I'm still human enough to pretend that any of this matters.